Before I begin this rant, I just want to get an important detail out of the way. I love Harry Potter. And I don't mean that I just read the books once or twice, I mean I'm a diehard fan. My mom started reading the series to me when I was 5, and by the time I was 6, I was reading it by myself. I remember being so attached that she would hide the books from me to get me to do my chores. I dressed up as Harry for Halloween 3 times, I've owned at least 5 different wands, and my copies of the book are so used that some of them split into 2 halves that you have to read separately. Harry Potter is single-handedly responsible for my love of reading, and I'm so grateful for its existence in so many ways that even putting it into words is difficult. But I hate Fantastic Beasts. I think my love for the original story is what makes this film insulting. What I dislike the most about it is that now I have to think of it as a part of my beloved canon. Like it or not, this Newt Scamander dude and his stupid adventures are always a thread that will have to exist tangent to Harry's. And look, I understand that I could disregard that and just pretend like it doesn't exist, but the 4 upcoming sequels are going to make that very, very difficult. And that's where its problems start, with the sequels. 4? Are you kidding me? First of all, and a quick sidebar, 5 films is just an odd number. Like, what are you going to call it? A quintet? A pentology? It's just like it's a clunky number. Regardless, it's painfully obvious while watching the film that it features 2 completely separate narratives playing out and that one of them has been shoehorned in for the purpose of setting up the rest of the quintet. The first plot is Newt Scamander's romp through 1920s New York on the search for those pesky magic creatures that have escaped from his whimsical pocket dimension. The second is about the seedy underbelly of the magical community in 1920s America and Grindelwald's initial plot to rise to power by exploiting the immense magical power of a troubled boy. Now, the biggest issue of the film, that isn't the larger construction of the cinematic universe, is just simple tonal dissonance. The Grindelwald one is dark. It attempts to engage with heavier material like abuse, neglect, and inserts in some X-Men-esque metaphors for minority struggles.
Your sister's in grave danger. We need to find her.
This would work fine if they just went all the way with it. Instead, it is starkly juxtaposed by the awkward shenanigans that Newt is up to. The second plot is almost sickly sweet, as if the filmmakers thought that it would somehow balance out the first one. Not only does cutting between the 2 plots not work, but when director David Yates attempts to bring them together at the end, it is sloppy, jarring, and just plain bizarre. They're torn between whimsy and angst, and it's so clumsily fused that it just shocks you out of the story. The film ultimately can't decide who it's for, what it is, or what it wants to say. This simply doesn't work. It's clear that the filmmakers in the studio believe that it can, simply because the Harry Potter series reached a similar tone at its end. What they fail to realize, though, is that the Harry Potter films didn't go that dark right out of the gate. The tone gradually got darker and darker, and that worked because it mirrored the maturity of both the characters and the audience. What Fantastic Beasts did was like if Dobby got brutally murdered by a Death Eater in Chamber of Secrets. It just wouldn't work. However, him getting brutally murdered later on, rest in peace Dobby, a free elf, actually works really well because the build-up was gradual. In addition, Fantastic Beasts is missing what made the Harry Potter universe so attractive, whimsy. In an effort to rush to a darker tone, it left all the fun behind. Even in the darkest moments of the original series, there's still time for Neville to crack a joke or McGonagall to summon an army of stone soldiers to battle. Early on in the series, this type of whimsy served to create a lived-in universe. The wall in Diagon Alley, the moving staircases, the nearly headless ghosts, and later on, once we were acquainted with all of this, it served to remind us and the characters what they were fighting to save. A reminder of home. There's nothing even close to this kind of tonal subtlety in Fantastic Beasts. Instead, we get ham-fisted sequel setup and crappy CGI. Furthermore, the sequel-baiting nature of the film leads to weak, malformed characters. While watching the film, I don't care about anyone, not the pudgy baker, the adorable zoologist, or the promiscuous legilimens. Because every time the viewer can get close to them, we cut back to Colin Farrell and we're out of it. And anyways, the arcs are all left half-baked for the purpose of being resolved in the 4 sequels. They're nothing characters in a nothing movie that only exist to make some sort of Harry Potter cinematic universe. And honestly, if we look at the trailer for the second installment, The Crimes of Grindelwald, it's unclear as to why we even needed to see the events of the first film. There's no reason why the series couldn't have started with Dumbledore giving Newt a mission and then summarizing the events of the first movie in a sentence or 2. In fact, that would have worked great because it clearly sets up the stakes and therefore the tone of the series going forward. Although, in retrospect, I guess Warner Bros. Has their reasons for that first installment. 812 million of them. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is a perfect microcosm of what I call cinematic universe syndrome. We've all seen it with failures like the DCEU and Universal's Dark Universe, and symptoms are even present in the MCU. The need to make a film that fits into some larger framework eclipses the need to make, a good movie. Suddenly, character development is pushed aside to make space for Easter eggs and cameos. Tone is either thrown out of whack while trying to marry multiple disconnected plot lines, or is flat and stale across all of them in order to smooth the union. They rely on the IP's established space in the zeitgeist to get people into the theater instead of a compelling story. When it comes down to it, I'm embarrassed that Fantastic Beasts exists. It's so obviously just there to take your money and then deliver the bare minimum of enjoyment that it feels like a spit in the face to all of the people who loved Harry Potter. It's so frustrating because what Warner Brothers fails to realize is that Harry Potter worked because the people who worked on it loved it. The cast was a family, the world was constructed with care, and the story was one that J.K. Rowling felt was necessary to tell, and that love put in yielded love back out. And so, to finish this off, I urge Warner Brothers and all the other producers and writers and directors to put love in. It's worth it.